Hi, this is Eternal King here, bringing you another LOR video today. I've got a weird one for you guys. So I've been playing Katarina Darius in Eternal, and I've actually been winning pretty non-stop. Which is weird because again, Darius Katarina is not a real deck. I think the only deck that's currently tracked in terms of Freljord midrange and Eternal is LeBlanc Yeti High Roll. If you don't know how Yeti High Roll works, you basically hope to mulligan hard for a bunch of Abominable Guardians, and then you get, two Yetis lined up on the board, and then it just spams out of your hand and cycles itself, right? So that's Yeti High Roll, and that's how that deck works, and then you finish off with an Incisive Tactician. Anyway, I killed the Yeti mid-range deck. I was killing, I even actually had a pretty decent game into a Zero Aurelia. Now, there was a little bit of mispiloting on their end, so they should have won easier than they did, but I actually had a pretty good game into a Zero Aurelia. And then obviously all the other games I played were just straight wins. I actually kind of want to break down what this deck is doing that's of interest to me. So first thing, standard sort of Freljord Noxus top end, or one drop end. Omen Hawk, right, shuffles in buffs into your deck. It blocks elusive units. It's one of the best one drops in the game. Legion Saboteur, Noxus Burn, one of the best one drops in the game. It can get bigger with buffs, or you just jam Darkened Spear right on top of it. And I'll do that. I'll one drop Legion Saboteur, and then I will just Darkened Spear onto the Saboteur so that it's guaranteed a swing, or two swings potentially, with both the spear and with the damage proc. So it's almost like a double skill proc. It's very good. Legion Saboteur plus Darkened Spear, or Legion Rearguard plus Darkened Spear is just really devastating in terms of a one drop. And then Omen Hawk obviously is just Omen Hawk, and it's just great as a one drop. So that line of play is very strong. So these three one drops backed up by Darkened Spear. Your standard 2-mana Overwhelm units, Ruthless Raider, Tusk Speaker, and then of course Snow Dog, because we're trying to buff our Overwhelm units. So these are Overwhelm units, and then you have your Snow Dog. And then you have your Vanilla Iron Ballista, which you're hoping to shovel buffs onto, because it is an Overwhelm unit. So again, Snow Dog, Hawk, Spear, onto the Iron Ballista. Katarina. Katarina is actually one of the cheapest available forms of Rally right now in the game, ever since a lot of Rally cards were nerfed. And this is a thing that LOR struggled with, where traditionally, yeah, a lot of Rally-based mechanics have been tuned down, and there's many that I can think of. I can think of in Ionia, you have the ephemeral Rally that was reduced in effectiveness, so Dragon Ambush. In Demacia, you have, on the top end, you have the big Rally. Champion Strength, right? Champion Strength was nerfed. So it's just Rally mechanics in general have been very much a point of contention in terms of balancing in the history of LOR. So it just turns out that in the Eternal format, specifically in an keyword Overwhelm deck, Katarina can do work. I'm as surprised as you are, right? Typically you see Katarina Yasuo, and then Katarina Yasuo is a bad deck, but I'm running mid-range Freljord, Noxus Overwhelm with Katarina, and it's just working. And a lot of it's just because people just aren't snap mystic shotting, or I get lucky and then I shuffle a buff onto her. When she levels, you will see the buff be removed, but it's still nice to have the buff on her. It's not that big of a deal. A little bit of anti-synergy, but then again, it's also synergy because you don't want her to get snap removed when she comes down. So her coming down a little bigger and guaranteeing the level up is actually still synergy. Whirling Death, really the only removal card that you want in an Overwhelm deck. You have a big Overwhelm unit, the opponent tries to block your big Overwhelm unit, then you Whirling Death their blocker. Pretty straightforward stuff in terms of how an Overwhelm deck plays. Red Barbed Razormance, 4 mana, great Overwhelm card, literally just a common that is just a 4/4 with Overwhelm, and if it gets buffs on it, it's bigger. And then if it hits the enemy's Nexus, it shuffles in a curse. So just a pretty staple Overwhelm tribal card. On 5, I've kind of gone back and forth. I had I had the 4/6 regeneration at first, because you can't use Glacial Saurian because that's a Nico card that will only be effective in a Nico deck, most specifically. because you're not going to get the cycle unless you have subtypes in your deck, which this deck does not run subtypes. So you can't run the Nico card, which would be the obvious inclusion. I tried the 4/6 Overwhelm with Regeneration, which was kind of cute, but a little on the Mimi side, right? 4/6 with Regeneration, nice to like block and then regen, and then swing the next turn with it, and then if the buffs end up on it, it's nice. But if the buffs don't land on it, then it's just a vanilla 4/6, and that doesn't feel great. So it just turned out that I just went like old school Hearthguard, right? Old school 5/6 Hearthguard, really strong, very, very strong. Again, the 5/6 body, and then shuffling in more buffs, which again, so full buff package, full mid-range Freljord buff package, Hawk, Spear, Snow Dog, and then Hearthguard, and then Overwhelm Tribal, and then a little bit of aggro synergy with Darkened Spear, and Katarina for the rallies, and then of course your Darius. So the whole point of the deck is to potentially get the opponent under 10 health, so you have level Darius, or level Darius on swing if you put him on the right side. And then one good old Battle Fury for the old, Overwhelm Tribal jank. I'm keeping that in there. It's a nice one of. But otherwise the deck is just like good, right? It beat Yetis. It had a good match into, like an okay match into Azir. It wasn't a great match. Like that's honestly, it's a kind of a terrible matchup. Katarina into Azir is like a terrible matchup. But the fact that we were even able to like play that game, and not have it be like the worst thing in the world, was refreshing. Like it was surprising that was okay. Yeah, Rally Overwhelm with deck buffs. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me that I have enough experience in this format now that I can basically win with anything, which is possible. But I actually think that this deck has some merits right now. And we've been doing a lot of mid-range Freljord, right? Like, just like mid-range Freljord stuff is just like good. Mid-range snow decks. Mid-range snow decks are just good right now. And there are problems with the Yeti construction. Like, if you look at the high roll Yeti deck, well, it's a high roll deck. And like high roll decks have to high roll. And while this deck has a little bit of high rolling with the likes of Omen Hawk and Snow Dog and stuff like that, you also have the backup plan of just like jam Darkened Spear on rear guard and get a free attack with a 3/4. Like that's going to be okay. 1 mana, it's collectively, it's like 1 mana, then 2 spell mana, 3/4 with that's shuffling in buffs into your deck. Like that's good enough, man. Like that's not bad. And then likewise, a 1 mana 2/3 that is shuffling in buffs, but also pinging the opponent's nexus. It's like a hyped up Snow Dog, right? For like 1 additional mana. It's just good, right? And it turns out that this is all exceptionally consistent and not really as janky or high rolly as you would think. Last game I picked the worst possible hand. I ended up with 3 Hearthguard. Like it's like old school LOR stuff. Like 3 Hearthguard is your nightmare hand. The deck still played great, even on the 3 Hearthguard hand. So like apparently this is just a decent deck. Really nice to see. Really nice to see. Basically, play things on curve that are threatening, and then play things later on that are bigger. And then that's the whole deck. That's it. It's a short video for today. I just wanted to talk about this deck that is doing pretty well. Mid-range Freljord in general looking like it's very well positioned. Now obviously, what is the counter to something like this? It'd be bringing back something like Ash, right? Like you bring back like Ash Frostbite mid-range, or just like Frostbite decks in general, and all of a sudden that my deck doesn't really do anything. So that's like a really good counter, is just like start running Frostbites again. Start running hard removal, start running bounces, all these things that currently aren't in the Eternal meta, that people just aren't playing. This deck is very, very susceptible to that. So Frostbites, stuns, bounces, on-curve pings, all the things people just aren't running right now because they're all like so hyper win-con focused. So yeah, this is very well positioned. And yeah, that was it for today's video. Again, you guys tell me how you guys are feeling. If you've been enjoying the massive shifts we've been having in the Eternal meta. If you feel like things are pretty well balanced and are going pretty well. And also, we can have a conversation about like how relevant do you feel Runeterra AR is in terms of presenting stats that are useful for you. Me personally, I feel like I've kind of evolved beyond looking at Runeterra AR for my deck stats, because like by the time something's listed there, it's already, you know, almost irrelevant unless it's literally like Matron Spam or Temple. Those are like the only two decks that I need to care about. Meanwhile, there's like a lot of ground that is not being covered that can be just as threatening, right? There's a lot of opportunities for deck building, a lot of opportunities to run different styles of decks that people are just not currently equipped to play against, either because they're bad at the format of Eternal, or they're looking at what's popular and seeing that, you know, oh, okay, well, nobody is running, you know, nobody's running Will of Ionia as a 4-of. Just, by the way, my Rise deck does. It runs Will of Ionia, Homecoming, and the 5-mana bounce, all as 3-ofs, right? Homecoming, Will of Ionia, plus the 5-mana bounce, right? Unworthy Soul. It runs all 3 as a 3-of. So, again, my meta is always very, very different from other people. Obviously, I popularized Azir Aurelia with Emperor's Army running the 3 Defiant Dances. I don't believe there's a single version of Azir Aurelia that should not be on 3 Defiant Dances right now. Again, just hard running the answers. Even in like a tempo swarmy kind of deck, you still run the only answer available to that archetype. You still run it. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, if you look at like a lot of PNZ temple decks, due to their nature, they might not be even ratioing, right? So like, they might be like one high note, one mystic shot, for example, in like a Seraphine deck. Well, that means they're not running 3 mystic shots, and that's like good for you because that's like one less chance that they can draw their on-curve removal. Like that's just good for you in general, that's the case. And then obviously they play Seraphine, and then sometimes they high roll into the ping. But yeah, in general, it's going to be good for you that their ratioing is a little more loose. And then they might be on like one Aftershock and one something else, and it's just like a lot of loose ratioing. That means you can increase the chances of just running a good deck and just plowing straight through them, which we saw live in the Jax video. Again, I've literally just been doing the exact same thing that I did in the Jax video with Darius Katarina, just to prove that I can. That just like through strong ratioing and an even deck concept and knowing what I'm doing and what to play around, that I can basically just force auto concedes out of everybody. But yeah, there are, you know, other styles of decks that you can build that would also be effective. I think Misfortune would be a good example. Like you could probably run Scouts right now. And I think that Scouts, like, you know, it's not going to be like the best thing in the world. It's just Scout, right? If we're going to do another live build, let's just try Scouts. So let's say we're doing Scouts, right? So that's Bilgewater, Demacia, and I'm just making the hard meta call that people aren't running proper answers to high commitment decks, or mid-range high commitment decks. They just don't have the answers. They won't have the answer for Misfortune on curve, and then they won't have the answers for the Scouts that I play either. So I'm just making that hard call right now. Because again, if mid-range Freljord is just running all over people because they're running loose ratioing and not proper spell synergies and things like that, or proper answers, then you can basically do what you want in a meta. So you are free to just run a hardcore Scouts package. Good question of which Scouts I want to run now, because I haven't run Scouts in so long, really. It actually surprises me how few Scouts there are. Like, do we not have more Scouts than this? Yeah, I guess they were very restrictive with running the Scout keyword in LOR. So, like, this is a case of where you're like, oh no, there might not just be the necessary archetype support to make this game, make this work. What do we want to run on 1? Okay, so no Scouts on 1, but, like, what do we want to run on 1? A lot of the time, people will run Crackshot Corsair to force essentially 1 damage in a Scout shell. So you could just do like Jagged Butcher plus the ping. That's not terrible. But yeah, interesting questions now in terms of like what's optimal for Scouts. Not a ton of choices. So like we are kind of being railroaded into like a weaker archetype. But like let's just do it. We can always spice things up on the top end, even if we have to run like bait in the rest of the deck. Like, I almost want to run Jera Lightfeather. Like, I'd rather just, like, cycle in buffs into my deck. But, yeah, I'm not actually going to do that. 2 mana. Typically, you want the old school tech. So I really like Hired Gun, right? Like, on 2, Hired Gun is solid. And did they buff chefs? Like, old retro chefs? Let's take a look. Let's see if they buffed retro chefs. And if that did receive a buff, I'm probably gonna run retro chefs, which is like believe that, right? Like, talk about like old school tech. Chefs in Demacia for 2 mana. Yeah, he's a 2/3 now, and so yeah, run retro chefs with Hired Gun. Jagged Butcher, Crackshot Corsair is okay with the scout interaction. It's not great. I almost feel like I'd rather just like play Fleet Feather Tracker and then War Scouts the Fleet Feather Tracker. Interesting question. Yeah, maybe. And then Magical Fettering. Fetricide Broadwing needs to go in there. I'm running Hired Gun. I probably don't need Broadwing, and I don't need this. We're making the Hired Gun call instead. So we'll just grant things vulnerable instead of trying to drag with the Broadwing. It seems worse though. Like, I think I'd rather be on Broadwing plus like nothing's really stopping us from like running like a formidable style top end, right? Like, what if we just run like a formidable deck that also happens to be a Scouts deck? And like, how bad is that? I don't think it's that bad. Formidable units are just kind of nice, so you can just jam Gentleman's Duel, which is a great card, and then you can jam Shield of Durand, which is a great card, and so like these are nice tempo tools to have. And then instead of the chefs, what you run is Durand Sculptor. Yeah, that's probably it. That seems like it's it. Not that Chefs is bad. If I did just want to play like stuff like a vanilla 2/3 that gets value, Chefs isn't terrible. I don't hate Chefs for that reason. Yeah, let's do it. Let's keep Chefs in. I like Chefs. I want Chefs in the deck. So yeah, that's good card. That's good card. That's good card. That's good. Good. Awesome. And then on 1. We'll go back to Fleet Feather Tracker and then Butcher. Should be a decent chance that we can just buff the Butcher through damage. And then we'll need some protection on 2 as well, which is going to be Form Up. So it's going to be Form Up and then this stuff. Gentleman's Duel to strike. These 1-drops here, which seem okay. Alrighty. Solid. And of course, you could even make the call that you'd rather have the Magical Fettering if you wanted to, but there might not be enough synergy for it. And like, it's slow speed versus burst speed, you'd probably rather have the burst speed. Okay. And then on 6, you always run the 6 mana, like quote unquote the good Scouts card, which is going to be Genevieve. Right? So you run the Genevieve, you run the Quinn, you run the Island Navigator, Shield of Durand to protect, Misfortune, Strike for removal, and then these things, more protection, and then these things. And that honestly is going to be kind of it, right? In terms of your Scout deck. You want to do something silly, like put in like a Quinn boat? Sure, we'll do 1 Quinn boat. That seems fine. I'd probably rather have a spell. Just like 1 champion strength, so I can't overdraw it, and it just sits there. Okay, 1 champion strength. All right. So again, I'm gonna do another one of these live. Just like we're just gonna give her, right? We're just gonna go for it, and we're gonna do like raw Scouts, and see how that does. I have no idea what that is, and that could be a problem if it's just like an infinite cycling deck. I'm hoping that there's no like answer for... Okay, we want to drop all these spells. Okay. I really would have liked to see a misfortune here, just because I think that they might not have had the correct answers for it. We're going to need more than this to kind of get us through, unfortunately. I guess we preserve... I'm going to wait because, you know, we're going to buff this with chefs anyway. So I'm just going to present the 2-3 here.
Smell that? A fight to cook it.
Okay.
When we look ahead, we know how
Yeah,
to prepare.
that's fine. Whatever.
Eat up, friend.
Listen to me.
Okay. Push 3 here, it's fine with me. And like, you might swing here, but again, it's not going to matter. Like, unless he has some sort of long game plan. Like, I don't really know what we're dealing with. Okay. But there's no time bombs or anything in your deck. So what's he duplicating? Sure. Okay, and then yeah, just get like I'm just gonna get a chef's conga chain going, because like, why not? Seems good to me. Okay. So this is obviously trading here. That's happening no matter what. That goes here, that goes here. Sure. So something like this. And then I'm going to swap here. Okay. We'll do this. So this is good value for us now on the farm up because that's a lot of, you're doing a lot of stuff there. Okay. Because that like negates the card that he just played and saves my challenger. So this is like the least scoutsy scouts game I've ever seen, but we're doing it. Yeah. Sometimes you just win off of fundamentals. I'm gonna keep that recording in there of just like the random one-drop scouts with no top end and how that was a problem for the opponent. A little concerning. Now, like, so what I would do is I'd play that game, right? So like that's like an insta win. So I like this, I like this, I like this, and I like that. The strike, this, yeah. And then I would probably focus on creating a slightly cleaner top end. Like, I think Shield of Durand is not necessary. But yeah, just like a slightly cleaner top end in terms of like what your Demacia deck is trying to do might be nice. And the way that you do that is honestly up to you. It might just be like if you double up on the Cythria and the Genevieve, then you're pretty solid most of the time into anything you could be running into. So, and then you just have like the one shielded Durand. Yeah. That's probably fine. So either the Cythria is buffing all your junky stuff on 6, or just the one Cythria and the 2 shielded Durands. No. Maybe 2 and 2, possibly. Or if you're very confident that the opponent's just not going to react to your board whatsoever, you could drop that and then just be like all in on the double champ strength. And then yeah, you're fairly certain that you're going to be drawing into some sort of win con at that point. And that's probably what I would do. Yeah, so 2 Cythrias and then the 3 Genevieves and the 2 champ strengths. Dropping the 3 mana protection and just hoping that a mixture of form up plus, you know, War Chef's swing value, plus the Durand Sculptor, and then your normal kind of like 1-drop spam package would kind of get you through what you need to get through in terms of your deck. But yeah, it just, again, fundamentals, right? Strong fundamentals. You have 1 strike card, you have 1 burst card, you have like a comprehensive 1-drop package. You gave a lot of thought about your snowbally 2-drops. I would say that in Eternal specifically, if you're running any sort of mid-range deck, you need to be on the snowball 2-drops. Like there's just, that's just kind of what you need to be doing. It could be Snow Dog. It could be something like, it could be a worse Snow Dog, like War Chefs. It could be Durand Sculptor. It could be the Elites card. But like right now, in terms of the way that Eternal is constructed, absolutely nothing is really there to stop you from just going nuts, right? Like everyone's so scared of like Eddie, and everyone's so win con focused and so all in on what they're trying to do that like you can, they're just not gonna like Mystic Shot a Sculptor. They're not gonna Mystic Shot any sort of snowbally 2-drop or snap remove a snowbally 2-drop, when like in my opinion snowbally 2-drops are insane in this game. And they need to be respected. So we kind of saw that with the last game. This is Eternal King, signing out.